Once again, hello and welcome everyone. This is the Q3 2009 What's New in WinForms webinar. It's 10 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. First of all, my name is Robert Shoemate. I'm a developer support specialist here at Telerik, and I specialize in WinForms, CAB, and SESF. So if you've had a question early on in your Telerik experience, and perhaps you've sent a technical question to the email or to the sales team, that's probably been filtered down onto me at some point, and we may have communicated in the past. If you're interested in asking me any technical questions, you can email me at shoemate@telerik.com. I also have a blog where I post many WinForms related things, and I have a few tutorials that are pretty helpful related to the Telerik CAB enabling kit that you might want to check out as well. And the address to that is blogs.telerik.com/RobertShoemate. And you can also follow me on Twitter if you're interested, where I post many of my blog entries, links, and whatnot, and that is @ShoeRob. A quick overview of what we're going to be talking about today. First off, I'm going to give you a brief overview of who Telerik is and what we do. I'm going to follow that up with a recap of what was new in Q2 2009. And following that, I'll go over what's new in Q3, and throughout that, I'm going to intermingle some demos here and there of the various new features. And following that, I'll give you some resources that you can use to learn about all the new features in Q3. And then finally, we'll do a little Q&A. If you haven't been following us for the past week, we've been doing a few webinars over the new features that we've released with Q3 2009. Last Wednesday, Todd Anglin went over what's new in WebUI Test Studio and Open Access ORM. On Thursday, he went over what's new in the ASP.NET AJAX and the Telerik extensions for MVC. And on Friday, Evan went over what's new in the Silverlight and WPF controls. And today, we're obviously going over what's new in the WinForms controls. And tomorrow, Evan's going to be wrapping up webinar week with what's new in reporting. And if you've missed any of the previous webinars, they're all recorded and available on tv.telerik.com. And today's will be up shortly after we're done. Alright, who is Telerik? Well, here at Telerik, we're striving to be your all-in-one .NET toolbox provider. And in doing that, we would like to provide you with the place you come for UI controls or development tools. And a brief overview of our UI controls that we provide. We provide controls for ASP.NET, the Telerik extensions for ASP.NET MVC, the RadControls for WinForms, Silverlight, and WPF. And for tools, we have reporting, Open Access ORM for your database needs. We provide UI testing, and we've recently ventured into TFS. So we have a new tool that interfaces with that system. And we also provide a CMS with Sitefinity. And we have one new product coming up that we haven't announced yet. And if you're interested in hearing about that, I recommend paying attention to what goes on at PDC in the coming weeks. And that's where we'll be announcing this new product. First of all, what was new in Q2 2009? Well, for Q2 2009, we focused a lot on performance optimizations. We've improved performance quite a bit throughout the entire suite. And we also added a couple new controls, such as the RadDock, which superseded the old docking manager. RadDock provides you now with the capability of using one of the most powerful docking tools on the market. We've also added the Rad split container, and we updated a few controls as well, such as the RadGridView. To that, we added tab child views and data validation. On the RadScheduler, we made some data binding improvements. For the Rad form and the Rad ribbon form, we improved the theming, behavior, and performance of those controls. For the Rad ribbon bar, we added a new gallery item, and we made a few improvements and new themes for that. For the Rad menu, we added MDI menu merging. And finally, for the Rad tool strip, we improved the design time support so that it would be easier for you to, create a Rad tool strip in the Visual Studio Designer. So finally, to the good stuff. What's new in Q3 2009? Well, first off, we made quite a few improvements to the Telerik presentation framework. We refactored the rad element lifecycle, and in doing this, we've decreased the load and dispose times of element trees, and this has led to a performance gain from anywhere between 20% to 300%. So if you're using a lot of RadControls in your application, you should expect to see quite a performance gain once you switch over to the new version. We also added some new features to HTML like text rendering. We've optimized the text rendering and improved the HTML parsing, and both of these things has improved performance for this as well. We also made some modifications to the themes, some performance optimizations for which have improved loading times, form creation, and theme changing. And we've also created a new pop-up mechanism. And this solves a lot of flickering issues that you may have experienced in the past with controls that use the pop-up. This has also added the capability of adding fade-in and fade-out pop-up animations, and a few controls implemented already, such as the Rad combo box, the Rad multi-column combo box, and the Rad ribbon bar. And just to show you what I mean by performance increase, I'm going to show you a quick demonstration of the different versions of the controls. Here I'm going to open up 3 different versions of the same exact application. So here I have 3 different versions of the same exact application. If you look at the title bar for each of these applications, you'll notice that it says Q1, Q2, and Q3. And what this application is it's actually a benchmark application. If you look at all these different buttons here, and it's running against the different versions of the assemblies that we have released for each quarter of this year. And for example, if I click load 200 buttons, it's going to, I guess, load those 2 buttons, or load those 200 buttons and display a form with those 200 buttons. And here in this top text box, example load time, it'll tell us how long it took to do that. So I'm going to do a few of these so we can see just how much performance has improved. So starting with Q1. And I'm going to run each of these twice just so I can get a really good reading out of it. So for Q1, it took about 2.7 seconds to load and display 200 buttons. I'm going to run Q2 one more time. Q2, we can see immediately that there was quite a drastic improvement, about 1 second load time versus the 2.7 seconds load time of Q1. Let's see how much we've improved performance in Q3. Load it one more time, and it's down to a little over 200 milliseconds. You can immediately see that's quite a drastic improvement. And this is because of all of the changes that we've made to the underlying Telerik presentation framework. Let's try the checkboxes test now. Q1, run it one more time. So it took about 3 seconds to load and display 200 checkboxes in Q1. Let's try Q2 now. One more time. It's down to about 1.2 seconds versus the 3 seconds in Q1. That's, again, quite a drastic improvement. Let's try Q3 now. You can immediately visibly see how much faster it is. So it's about, I guess, a little under 300 milliseconds for Q3 versus the 1.2 seconds it took in Q2 versus the 3 seconds it took in Q1. So based on this demo, you can really see how much performance means to us and how much we've been trying to improve it with each release. We've also enhanced the HTML-like markup, and in doing so, we've added several new HTML-like text rendering tags. First off, we've added some new tags for text styles and formatting, starting with the span tag. The span tag now allows you to set a font family, a font size, a color, and a background color. And this is now the preferred tag to using the old font, color, or size tags. And here down at the bottom, you can see a quick example. There's a screenshot of a label actually using the span tag. And here's the code that was used to display that label. We've also added a couple more tags for text styles and formatting, such as the bold tag, the italic tag, underlined and strike tags, and we've also added support for the paragraph tag. Down here at the bottom, you can again see another example. This is actually a single label displaying all of this differently formatted text, and here's the code that does that. So at the top you can see the bold text is displayed in a strong tag, italic text displayed in an italic tag, and so on. And these are line by line because I'm also using the paragraph tag in that single label. We've also added support for lists, including ordered lists and unordered lists. And again, you can see some examples of this. Down here at the bottom left is an example of an unordered list. And again, that's a single label displaying all of that formatted text. And to the right, you can see an ordered list, and again, a single label. And we've also, again, added support for links, just a standard link like you would use on a website. And here down at the bottom, you can see an example of that. If I were to have that application up and running and I click that link, it would open up the default web browser for my computer and just take me to that website. And finally, we've added support for images as well. And an image path can be a resource in your application or a file on disk. And here down at the bottom you can see I have, again, this is actually a label, but the label is displaying an image because I use the image tag. So we have all of this new HTML-like markup. So I'm going to go back to the front here. You can see we have all of this new HTML markup we can use. So you can imagine typing all of this by hand, maybe typing all of that by hand, ordered list, unordered list. Having to type all that can be kind of tedious. So we saw a need for something here, and that's why we created the Rad Markup editor, so that you don't have to go and type all of that HTML markup yourself. The Rad Markup editor is basically a WYSIWYG editor that simplifies the way developers and users edit text in HTML-like markup. And I'll show you a quick example of how that works right now. Alright. Here I have an application, and it just has a label on it and a button on it. And I'm going to show you quickly how I can change the formatting of this single label right here. So if I select it in the designer and come down here to the properties window, you'll notice that now when you select many of the RadControls and go to their text properties, when you click the drop down, it'll display the plain text, but now there will be a new button that starts the markup editor. So if I click this button, you can see the Rad Markup editor immediately pops up, has the contents of that label contained within it, and I can easily now use a nice ribbon bar style interface to format my text, and I don't have to worry about writing HTML markup myself anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and format this text a little bit, change the color. Let's change the font as well. And if I did want to actually edit the markup, you have the option of doing that still as well. If you click the Markup tab, you can immediately see all the markup for that label, and you can modify it here however you please. So I'll go ahead and click Apply. You can immediately see that the new formatting has been applied to that Rad label. So what if you want to use the Rad Markup editor in your application now? Well, I'll show you a quick demonstration of that as well. I'm going to start the application up and show how it's been integrated into this application. Alright, here it is. This button right here, I'm going to click it, and what this button does is it's actually going to spawn the Rad Markup editor again, and I've set it up to work with this Rad label. It's running a bit slow. I'm actually running this inside of a virtual machine, so it should run a lot better on a native operating system. Alright, the Rad Markup editor is up, and here we can see the same exact label, and it works just like before. It's just been integrated into my application. So I'll go ahead and format this text again. Change the font, increase the size, and I'll go ahead and change the color again. And when I click Apply, You can immediately see that it's been applied to that label. So how did I do this? How did I integrate that into my application? Well, let's take a look at the code for that button. So for the button's click event handler, all I did was I've created a rad markup dialog, and in creating that dialog, I set the text of the rad label to the value on the dialog, and then if the user happened to click OK, then I assign the value of that dialog back to the text for that label. And that's all there is to it. It doesn't get much simpler than that. We've also updated the RadScheduler control. For the RadScheduler, we've made some drag and drop improvements, and this has improved rendering feedback, and the drag and drop feature now has a lot better responsiveness. We've also added a new feature that many of you have been asking for, resource grouping. And what resource grouping does is it allows you to group several resources in a single scheduler instance. And I'm going to show you how that works right now. So I'm going to go here. I'm in the Quick Start application included with the RadControls for WinForms. And if we scroll down and select the scheduler, you'll see that there is now a new example for grouping. So I'll go ahead and click that and open that example up. So here are my resources. This scheduler has obviously now been set up to handle resource grouping. So at the top you can see that I have all of my resources. Alan Smith is a resource and Dodsworth is a resource. If I scroll to the right, you can see the other resources I have assigned to the scheduler. And below each resource, you can see that they each have their own individual scheduler sections. So I'll go ahead and add an appointment to Alan Smith so we can see how that works. So I right-click the context menu and select New Appointment. And in my Edit Appointment dialog, you can see that the resource setting has automatically been set to Alan Smith for me. So if I click OK, it automatically groups that appointment under Alan Smith's resource grouping. So what if I want to change the resource of this appointment? Let's see what happens. So I'll double click it to open the Edit Appointment dialog back up, and I'll change the resource to Ann Dodsworth, and let's click OK. So you can immediately see that it automatically detected that I changed the resource, and it moved the appointment for me over to Ann Dodsworth's resource section. And you can also do this by simply dragging and dropping the appointment as well. So I'll drag it back to Alan Smith, and if I double click it, you can see that the resource again has automatically been changed to Alan Smith for me. So you have this capability as well between all the different views provided by the scheduler. So if I click week view, you can see it in there as well, and it's for month view as well. So let's take a quick look at the C# code for this to see how it's been set up. So here's the line of code for setting up the scheduler to use resource grouping. It's just one line of code. It's pretty simple. There's a new property called group type on the RadScheduler, and to support resource grouping, you simply need to set that property to grouptype.resource, and it handles everything for you from there. And if you noticed as well, I'm also seeing only 2 of my resources per view. You can actually change how many you want to see, and doing that is as simple as this line of code. You simply grab the view that you want to set the resources you can see per view, and there's now a resources per view property on it, and you just set it to the amount of resources you would like to see, and in this case it's 2. And that's all there is to it. It's pretty simple. We've also updated the RadDock. The RadDock now features tab alignment and visibility. This works for both the document windows and the tool windows. And it also features a customizable drag-drop service. And basically what this is the drag-drop service that you can retrieve from the RadDock now has a drag-drop behavior property on it. And normally this property is set to auto, and auto allows users to use the default behavior, which is to click and drag-drop dock windows with the mouse. But now you're able to set this drag-drop behavior property to manual, and that allows for completely manual control over the drag and drop process. And I'll show you a quick demonstration of that right now. So if you select the dock example in the Quick Start framework, you can see two new examples have been included, the drag drop automation example and the tab strip properties example. I'll go ahead and start with the tab strip properties example. And I'm going to adjust some of these windows here so you can better see how this works. So here I have my tool window and its tab bar, or its tab strip down at the bottom, and my document windows with their tab strip up at the top. And this is the default behavior for both of these windows. But now each tab strip type has a property on which you can set the alignment on. So over here to the right, you can see that we've added two combo boxes that you can select the alignment for. And so let's select the document tabs alignment. I'm going to go ahead and set it to left, and you can see that the document tabs are now aligned to the left. You can set it to the bottom, set it to the right, or back to the top. And the same goes for the tool tabs. You can set the alignment to the left, to the top, to the right, or back to the bottom. And both these tab strips now have a visibility property that you can set. So if you want the document tabs to be invisible, it's as simple as clicking this checkbox over here will show you that. And visible once again, and same for the tool tabs. I don't want to see them anymore, and now I want to see them again. Simple as that. Now let's check out the drag drop automation demo. Here we have a few different scenarios that we've implemented, and this RadDock actually has completely custom drag and drop behavior. That property I was talking about earlier has been set to manual, so you'll notice when I try to click and drag these windows, it no longer works. That's because these buttons have been set up to manage that for me. So I'll click scenario 1 and let's see what that does. So it's actually automatically dragging and dropping that window for me. And the same thing goes for scenario 2. It automatically drags and drops a window for me. And this is because that drag drop service behavior has been set to manual, and completely custom behavior has been implemented through the events provided on the drag drop service. Now this is kind of an advanced topic, and I've actually written a blog entry if you're interested in looking more into it. And once again, you can access my blog at blogs.telerik.com/RobertShoemate. And I believe the blog entry for this is what's new in the RadDock for Q3 2009, and tab strip properties and drag drop automation. So again, if you're interested in going more into this, just check out my blog, and there's a pretty good entry on this that provides a pretty good example for you to look at. We've also updated the RadGridView. The RadGridView now features keyboard support. You can scroll to the bottom by pressing Control Home, or you can scroll you can scroll to the top by pressing Control Home, or you can scroll to the bottom by pressing Control End. You can also open up the context menu by pressing Shift F10. It also features improved scrolling, which I think most of you will like a lot, and I'll show you that in just a minute. And finally, it features a single scroll bar in hierarchy mode, and smooth scrolling as well. But the screenshot down here at the bottom shows you what the RadGridView looked like in Q2 2009. You can see that each grid view in the hierarchy has its own individual scroll bar, and I imagine this can probably get pretty confusing for users to manage. But now we've updated that with this new and improved feature, and here to the right you can see a screenshot of the same exact application, but now it features a single scroll bar that allows you to scroll through the entire hierarchy. And I'll show you an example of this right now. So first, I'm going to show you what the RadGridView looked like in Q2. So I have the Q2 2009 Quick Start framework right here. And this is just going to be a quick reminder for you just to see what it looked like. So I'll open up the grid view, and let's take a look at the hierarchy example. So here's the hierarchy example. Can immediately see the smooth scrolling I was talking about doesn't exist here. So if I scroll down, you can see that that entire section just jumps away. And I'll go ahead and open up this section too, and you can see that when I'm scrolling around, the scroll bar kind of changes sizes, and the grid just kind of jumps around. You can also see that each hierarchy section has its own individual scroll bar showing up as well. So I'll show you what it looks like in Q3 2009 now. I'm going to go ahead and open up the same exact hierarchy example. And here, first off, let's check out the scrolling. Look how smooth it is. So it's a lot smoother, and I think this will really improve the user experience when using RadGridViews in your application. It's no longer you no longer get that jumpy effect from the previous release, which I think is a lot nicer. And if you've noticed as well, each of the hierarchies doesn't have an individual scroll bar. I'm actually just smoothly scrolling using one single scroll bar. If you like the nested scroll bars, you have the option of turning that back on as well. Just clicking this checkbox in the demo application will handle that for me. You can see now that this hierarchy grid view now has its own scroll bar, but it's featuring the smooth scrolling as well, which is nice. We've also updated the RadTreeView. The RadTreeView now features a localization provider. It now has scrolling speed properties, and it also features keyboard support, much like the RadGridView. It features you can now scroll through the tree view using Control plus the arrow keys. You can scroll to the top or the bottom using Control Home and Control End. You can also multi-select by pressing Shift and the arrow keys. And if you press the divide key on a node, it will collapse all nodes underneath it. So let's take a quick look at how that works now. I'm going to go ahead and open up just a random one of the tree view examples. Let's do the 50,000 nodes so we have a lot to work with. So I'm just going to select a node to start with, and now I'm actually going to press Control and the down arrow key. And you can see that I'm just easily scrolling through the tree view now. And if I press up, it'll scroll back up. If I press Control End, it immediately jumps all the way down to the bottom. If I press Control Home, it takes me all the way back up to the top. And I'm going to go ahead and expand one of these nodes so you can see how this works. If I press Divide, it will immediately collapse those nodes for me. And that's the new keyboard support added to the RadTreeView. So what else is new in Q3? Well, we've also updated the Rad form and the Rad ribbon form. They now feature active and inactive states. The Rad form now allows customization and Visual Style Builder. Previously to this release, I think there was an issue where you could not customize the Rad form, so we're happy about that now. The Rad ribbon bar has also been updated. It features group collapse orders, which are based on weights. So basically, whatever weight you set on a group will determine when that grouping starts to collapse in the ribbon bar when you're resizing the window. And we've also added various visual fixes to the Rad ribbon bar and aesthetic changes, such as polished UI. The new pop-up behavior from the Telerik presentation framework has been implemented on it. And there are now vertical separators between button groups. The Rad menu has also been updated. It can now be highlighted via the system keys Alt and F10. And the Rad combo box and the Rad list box have been updated as well. Both of them feature the new pop-up mechanism from the Telerik presentation framework, and they both also include improved data binding, which means support for a large number of items. And they both have improved memory footprints due to this as well. There is one new control in the suite, the Rad Scrollable panel. This control actually features the same exact functionality as the Rad panel. The only difference is now you can theme the scroll bars. And the reason that we created another control for this was we had to, I guess, work around a bit of a problem we were experiencing. So the new control is the Rad Scrollable panel, and we didn't want to break any of the functionality if a lot of you were already using the Rad panel. So If you're interested in theming the scroll bars on the Rad panel, you can go ahead and switch your application over to using the Rad scrollable panel now, if you're interested. And finally, we've updated the theme for Visual Style Builder, and down below you can see a screenshot of that. If you've been lucky enough to use Visual Studio 2010, or if you've used the Expression line of products from Microsoft, you'll notice that this theme is very similar. And the reason for this is we wanted to, I guess, make the development experience in Visual Studio seem a lot more seamless to you. So when you bring up the Telerik Visual Style Builder, it looks very similar to the look and feel of Visual Studio. So how do you plan on mastering Q3 2009? Well, we have a few learning resources that you can use. First off, there's Telerik TV. The address to that is tv.telerik.com. And on Telerik TV, we have a lot of training videos and training material that you can watch to learn from. And also the previous webinars from this week's webinar week will be posted there, and this webinar will be posted on Telerik TV as well. There are online demos available at demos.telerik.com. And finally, there's online documentation posted at telerik.com/help. And for all questions, just start at telerik.com/support, and from there you can access all of the different support offerings that we have. So, with that concludes what we have to talk about today, and I suggest that you go and check out all of the new great features that we've added to the Telerik product line today by just once again visiting telerik.com. And also, if you're interested, tomorrow we're going to be following up this webinar and I guess wrapping up webinar week with the final webinar by Evan Hutnick about what's new in reporting for Q3 2009. And I'm going to go ahead and try to answer a few questions. I'm going to just read through a few of them right now, and then I'll start answering questions. So if you have a question, it's a good time to ask it. And as always, if you would like to, I guess, personally ask me, you can email me as well. And once again, my email address is shoemate@telerik.com. So I'm going to read through a few of these, and then I'll try to answer a few. You added support for HTML table. I've not added support for the HTML table. Alright, the first question we have is, have you added support for the HTML table? And the answer to this is no, we have not. Basically, with the HTML markup, question that I've seen a lot is, why aren't we following HTML explicitly? Why have this markup? And basically, the answer to that is, the goal of HTML markup is not to reproduce HTML in Visual Studio. It's to provide you with a simple, well-known mechanism that you can use to stylize your text in an easier and familiar way. And so, support for an HTML table, the answer again to that is currently we don't have support for that. And another question related to the HTML markup, is the Rad markup editor meant to be used as the rich text editor? And the answer to that is no, the Rad markup editor is not meant to be a replacement for the rich text editor. The Rad markup editor is used so you can stylize HTML like markup in a simple way using a nice GUI interface. And a rich text editor is it's still in our plans. I wouldn't worry about it. We'll have some more information probably soon about, I guess, when that might become a possibility for us to develop. And finally, we have one more question. Can I embed the Rad markup editor in my application like a regular control? And the answer to that is no. We made it specifically a user control, I guess a dialog, because we it's really meant to be used as an editor for styling the HTML like markup, and I guess embedding it in your application on a form would kind of break that functionality.